Boom! Hey guys, welcome back to Jason Unleashed. What's going on? Jason Carter here. Thank you so much for watching and thank you for being here with me today. Good to see you guys. My heart goes out to everyone on the West Coast and everyone that's impacted by the fires that are happening across our country. Hearts and prayers sent out to you. Thank you so much for just hanging in there. I stand with you. I see you guys. For today's show, though, I have a good friend from Fandango. She is correspondent and entertainment journalist and critic, Nikki Novak. She's in the house. Let's get her in. Bam. Go live with Nikki Novak. She is the bomb. One-stop shop for all you need to know about movies, television, music, you name it. She's got you covered, and she's a kick-ass girl you're going to see. Nikki, hi. Oh, my gosh. That's incredible.
Is it better?
Oh, it's so good. Welcome back.
What happened?
COVID. Okay, so listen. Boom, take two. Nikki Novak, thank you for being on my show.
Oh, no, cutting out. Here we go.
Oh, wait, am I cutting out too? Are we better?
I think so.
Okay, we're here. Okay.
Not to move because I sometimes think that's better when you don't move.
Okay, yeah, I think this is as good as it's going to get. Hey, say what's up to Tommy, to Dario. He just checked in. Nikki, it's so good to have you on the show. Love and adore you. We talk a lot about movies. Thank you. We talk a lot about television and movies, and as I said, you are this one-stop shop for all of that. Started your career as a model, but realized that, hey, oh my gosh, my calling is to be a host. The journey of becoming a host, though, there's a lot of peaks, a lot of valleys, a lot of disappointments. For you, how did you get there? Because there's no one sure way to do it. What was your journey?
I think for a lot of people, there's always that one thing that's a fluke that you never really thought, and that was kind of your entry. Like I was modeling. I came out to LA to be an actress. I was doing some acting. I still had a modeling agency. And then my model agent, they tend to like girls that can, we always get the term models that can talk, like models that are good spokespeople. And I used to do a lot of that kind of thing, a lot of commercials, a lot of spokesperson-y type things. And then one day my modeling agent said, hey, there's this award show called the Young Hollywood Awards. Do you want to be the host of the red carpet? It was like a once-a-year thing. And there's this guy that, you can go meet him and see if it works out. So I ended up hosting the Young Hollywood Awards. Now, I had done a little bit for E! I should give a shout out to Annie Roberts because I had met Annie Roberts. When I was in New York City and I was modeling, they were casting for Wild on E! When they were recasting the Brooke Burke that Cindy Taylor ended up getting. And my friend wanted to audition, never thought about hosting ever. And I went along for moral support with her. And Annie will tell this story that I was wearing this like pink Juicy Couture like sweatsuit, like the velvet that everybody wore, the hoodie.
Yeah, the velour.
The velour. And she was like, oh, you just came along as a friend and you were wearing your sweats. Meanwhile, that was my go-to outfit in New York City at the time. Like that was my good stuff, But I was like, oh yeah, I just threw this on. But she said, do you want to audition? And I auditioned. And they would use me as an East Coast correspondent. So Annie Roberts was like really the first person that gave me a job, but I wasn't really a host. But she laughs about it now. She's like, I remember your pink Juicy outfit. Now she's, of course, at E! And she's been an executive at E! for a long time, or she was at the time, and she's been there for a long time. But I ended up hosting, long story short, the Young Hollywood Awards, and then I ended up doing interviews for them. They just hired me to do these interviews, and it turned into kind of a full-time gig, and I loved it so much. I was still acting, and then I would send out on acting auditions, and I'd be like, hey, can we get this done? Because I got to go back to my hosting job. Like, I didn't care anymore. And of course, that's when I booked the acting jobs because I didn't care anymore. But that's kind of how I got my start. But when you talk about the ups and downs, like, I get asked a lot from young journalists that really want to do this. I get asked a lot, like, how'd you get your start? And I feel like everybody wants that shortcut. Like, what's the trick? What's the trick?
Right.
I just was going through my Instagram, Jason, because I'm deleting like 3/4 of it. And I went back and I was doing like a deep dive in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep. And I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't remember even doing half the interviews. And I realized, like you just go through so many twists and turns and you never know when the next job is coming, where it's coming from, or what the next opportunity is going to be. So anyway.
I love, first of all, shout out to Annie Roberts. Love Annie. And the kindest person, in a world full of really douchey people, she is so sweet and kind and just cool. You know what I mean? Like, it's so refreshing, but I love that story. And you're so right about the cracking the code of trying to make it in this business, because we have the end result, which is booking the job or whatever.
Yeah.
But along the way, you know, they say it's not the destination, it's the journey. I think, and this is so cliche to say, Nikki, but the jewels and the gems that you acquire along the way when you look back are so much more priceless than that one gig you booked or that interview, because it shapes who you are on camera, those experiences. You know, when young journalists ask me, Jay, how do you, you know, what do you say to, how do you, what's your advice? I say, just keep showing up and doing the work. Just keep showing up. Because you never know.
Say yes to everything. Say yes to everything. I met Richard Branson once a long time ago, and he said, within reason, nothing like crazy, but within reason, say yes to everything. Because you never know. And it's even like the person that you worked with on this show, and the show didn't pay you, and he was a junior producer, is now the executive producer of a network TV show. And not that you're being nice for that reason, but you should really be nice to everyone in this business. It's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. And I certainly, you and I talk about this, I certainly don't forget when people are kind. It makes such a huge difference. And I don't just mean on camera, because I know those people too, and we're not going to name names, where they're so nice and you watch their interviews and then you meet them on a carpet and they're like, and you're like,
I know. It makes you lose your faith in humanity, but also I love how you said about when you didn't care it happened. I think that also speaks to allowing and letting go, because we want to control, you know, me and you talk about surrender, and you want to control. This business is full of really type A ambitious people, which is a good thing. You want to go out, you want to make things happen, you want to be in control of your destiny, and to some capacity you are. But in a business like the entertainment industry that works like no other business in humanity, there is this, you have to also cultivate that muscle of surrender, letting go, and allowing. Because how many times have you really wanted the job? Have you really been like ready for it? Rehearsed the outfit, the hair, the cologne, everything, girl, and you don't book it. You were every time, right? And then when you're just like, I'm going to show up in a Juicy Couture velour outfit with Juicy on my butt, you book it, right?
That's the key. Oh my God, Jason. I need to keep wearing the Juicy sweats. I actually want to bring them back, because I'm sorry, they're hot. I'm sorry.
The hot people, they're incredible, and they look so comfy. They look very comfy.
They were very comfy. People in New York, I used to know people that would just call me Pink, because I always wore it. It was my go-to. But yeah, I mean, what you're talking about, surrendering, and within the interviews that you're doing, and within the job, like even when you're on air, and I see it a lot too, is when people try to be hosts, or they try to ask a smart question. And I've done this too, where I watch my interviews back, and I swear 9 times out of 10, when there was a moment, when there was too long a pause or something, you know, I thought I said that sounded stupid, because it was so authentic, when I watch it back, it looks better than the stuff that I thought went well. It happens all the time. When you're so controlled, and I tend to be a control freak, when you're so controlled and you're controlling your answers, and you think, that felt very in control. But when you watch it back, the camera does not lie. The camera does not lie. It picks up on all your authenticity and all your inauthenticity. So yeah.
Well, I think that's what's so awesome about you, though, is your authenticity. And you're right. The camera doesn't lie. And more than ever, audiences are savvier than ever. And they see through a fake hosty host. They want someone that they can connect to. And people really do connect with you, Nikki. I mean, you have lent your expertise, which is vast, and your talent to every herald and celebrated platform entertainment, from Access, HLN, NBC, ABC, you name it, Good Day LA, Fox LA. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Cultivating that muscle. When did you decide that movies and television was going to be your jam?
Again, it's something I kind of fell into. I hosted at Young Hollywood for, probably 4 years, I want to say, and interviewed several people a day. Like that was, I probably did 5,000 to 10,000 interviews there. I haven't even counted, but there were a lot. And one thing that I always loved I just love actors. As much as, you know, I've told you, I tried to be an actress. I have, and I couldn't do it. I just don't have it in, like, it's just not me. I prefer being myself. I prefer using my own words. Where when I interview actors, most of the time they say to me, I don't know how you do what you do. Because they like disappearing into a character.
Right.
But I really appreciate and love actors. I love the business. I love learning about the business. And then I got an opportunity. Fandango, somebody who was scouting at Fandango reached out to me. And I just found this new passion where where not only was I doing interviews, I was being interviewed on TV about film and that. So been in the business for a long time, but definitely made a shift. Like you have to be willing to pivot all the time. And I love it so much. I mean, it's my sanctuary. Like one of my favorite things to do is go to these, you know, we get these press screenings before movies come out. We go to these press screenings, and sitting in a press screening, and I see my friends and other critics, and you're like, hey. And sometimes when it's a really good screening, they give you free popcorn. It's a really big studio. But I love that. I love that haven of sitting down in a movie theater and just, you know, watching something before it's come out, and that excitement. And, you know, I just love it so much.
Well, people are loving you in the comments. Also, shout out to Travis Harrison, love you back. Sade Spence says, hey. This guy, Grievous says, I have a crush on you, Nikki. And he's not the only one. But so your television, movies, here we are. You are working for Fandango. You are a go-to. I mean, you cover award season. You cover everything. Let's talk about what's happening with the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences with this inclusivity initiative that they've just announced that in 4 years, which I get why it's going to take 4 years for these studios to catch up, but it's getting panned by people on the right saying like, you know, is this compromising my artistic integrity? Are we going to be now dumbing down the quality of Best Picture or the coveted categories to be politically correct? What do you think?
Well, I think anytime you have change, you're always going to have, and especially we're living in that day where people hear one thing and then people want to have extreme opinions, you know, There's no middle ground anymore. There's no, with anything, there's no like, I get what you're saying, but here's what I have to say. It's like, oh, I hate it or I love it. It's what, and I think when you actually look at the fine print and you see that, you know, people think that it's going to stifle creativity, but there's a lot of different parameters about the new rules. And there's like, you have to meet 2 of the 4 criteria. So I think it's great. And I think it's great that they are groundbreaking in that way. The Oscars has always been the pinnacle of all the award shows. And I love that they're taking the initiative. They're taking the initiative to make change. And I think where people find, anytime you hear about some big changes that are made, I think people always sort of initially go, wait a second, is this going to affect? But I think you'll see over time that it's really just a positive change.
And I agree 100% is a positive change. I think for some people of color in the business, a conversation I had was, well, is it now going to be seen as charity for these talents instead of, it's like, it's the whole outfit that I'm going to wear just my color. And am I only going to be given this, it's going to be a form of affirmative action, I guess, because of what's happening in the world and because the Academy wants to be on the right side of history versus saying, hey, let's just give roles to the most talented people. So it's like this double-edged sword. I agree with you. I think change, inclusion, diversity, and representation are absolutely paramount in this business, especially as someone who has been, I want to say a victim of racism in the business, but has had his career affected by choices made due to my LGBTQ plus status and the color of my skin. So anytime that there's someone who's willing to say, hey, let's make sure everyone gets a seat at the table, I'm here for. But 4 years isn't that long of a time. And I think
it's not, in the sense that when you actually, like, when movies are conceived, sometimes movies are in the works for 10 years before they ever see the light of day. Sometimes they're really quick. So 4 years, I think, is a fair amount of time because it involves a lot of change. And those changes do take some time. You can't immediately say it's going to happen next year. But I think, you know, for people who say, oh, it's just like tokenism or, you know, like what you said, I think it's more, you have to look at how the Academy has really shifted their makeup in the last few years to be more inclusive, and people that are making the decisions are people that genuinely care and are trying to make change for a good reason. It's not just to show something. I think it's coming from a genuine place. 1,000%.
It's not performative, if you will. Circling back to you on camera, watching your interviews, there's an art to interview. Drew Barrymore has this series right now called The Art of the Interview. She's interviewed like Whoopi Goldberg and whatnot. And watching your interviews, Nikki, what is so fascinating about them is that you instantly have an instant connection to whoever's sitting next to you. And that's not easy to do. That is not easy to do. Do you think that's just a natural talent you have, or is that something that you had to work continuously on to build that and hone that power?
Thank you, number one. Number two, I think it's a bit of both. I think I've always been that person that, even back when I was modeling, I think part of the reason I got the job and the girls that I saw working over and over and over, look, when you see every girl in that business was gorgeous. So what made somebody stand out? It was their personality. And believe it or not, I wasn't like a high fashion model doing catwalk. I did more like commercial work. And those usually you're doing 10-day shoots or 5-day shoots. Those people want to be around somebody that's fun, that shows up on time, that's professional. And I think that sort of trained me in a way. And the other thing about that job is every day you work with a different crew, every day. Like you work with this crew and then you jump to a new job. And so you're never going to the same office where you're working with the same people. You're constantly working with new clients, new people. And so what do you have to do? You have to immediately break the ice. Sometimes you're traveling with these people, you're getting up at the crack of dawn, they're seeing you at your worst. And so I think it's years, like you said, it's years and years of that. But I think in terms of interviewing, I really, believe it or not, I really hate question and answers. I prefer a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, and it doesn't always, you can't always have, like, especially when you're doing junkets where they tend to just sit there and wait to be asked something. When you have a longer form interview, it can become more of a conversation like you and I are having. But I feel like that's just my innate, like, I don't like that feeling when I am doing an interview where I feel like it's just question, answer. I like a conversation. So any way that I can, even if I have 30 seconds to break the ice before my interview starts, that makes or breaks the whole tone of the whole interview to me. If I don't have that moment, I got to find it in the first 15 seconds of being on air. But I generally like to feel like it's more of a conversation. And sometimes there's not a place for it. Sometimes it needs to be a question and answer, just depending on the format and who you're interviewing, the type of interview. And then you have to pivot. But those are my favorite ones, when it just feels like two people chatting. And I am asking questions and they're answering them. It just doesn't feel like that.
Right, 100%. Don't you? The type of interviews, Nikki, I cannot stand are the ones where like they don't realize that a human is sitting from across from them, right? It's like, okay, let's say you're you're interviewing ScarJo, right? And just as an example, hypothetical. And it's like, girl, like, let's just kiki. Like, we're good. Are you okay? Like, trust me, this is a safe space, boo. Don't worry. I'm not going to ask about, like, anything. But those are always interviews I hate where you have to, like, pull teeth to get something out of them. It's like, throw me a bone, bro. And as professionals, we still carry on and do a good job. But I agree, a conversation always yields the best sound bites if you're there to get a sound bite, and also a really good experience. I mean, how many stars have you interviewed where they were happy to see you again because they had an awesome experience with you? You know what I mean?
Like, and that's the biggest compliment. I remember when I started and I was at Young Hollywood, and they used to spend quite a bit of time because they would come into our studio and it was quite a long interview compared to a junket. If they didn't leave and say, that was so much fun, I was insulted. I was like, right. That was always my goal, is for them to say, you know what, even if they're surprised, that was really fun. If they say that, then I've done my job. But I always like, in terms of like breaking that ice, I always sort of try to think about, and I have this rule, if I was to meet that person out, let's say I went to a dinner party out at night and that person happened to be seated next to me, would I approach the conversation differently? How would I approach if I wanted to ask them the same questions I want to ask in the interview? Think about when you sit next to somebody at dinner, how you would approach the same questions. You'd be way more casual, right?
Right, yeah.
That's kind of how I try to approach interviews. And I still think you have to be more professional. Obviously, when you're in a professional setting, you're not going to be like, hey, tell me the truth about, you're on camera and you have to be respectful. But I always try to approach it in that way. Like, how would I approach this person if we were just hanging out? Right. And that way, I think it feels a little bit more authentic. And I think they immediately feel that energy where, not that you're on the level, but you're you're just there to have a conversation with them. You're not there to get anything,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Barbara Walters gave great advice once. She said, I never, as much as people revealed stuff to her and cried in her interviews, she always said, I never asked anything, or I never tried to get anything out of a person that they didn't want to reveal. People told me stuff that they really wanted to get off their chest. I didn't convince them. I don't want anybody to walk away and go, God, how did she get me to say that? I didn't really want to talk about that. She said, I just enable people to talk about what they already wanted to say.
Right.
It's not like gotcha kind of thing, you know?
And you know what? Yes, I remember Barbara saying that, and Nikki also, about when people are crying. I think it was Oprah, and Oprah was really good about this. When someone's having a moment, normally as humans, we want to like console and comfort someone when they're going through. But Barbara and Oprah let them cry and get it out, because immediately after they reveal the reason why they're upset, and that's a whole. It's like this science that I don't understand why more people on television don't get. Like, let people just be who they are in that moment, and let the magic unfold for itself. And Barbara and Oprah are the masters at that.
You have to be comfortable in the silences. You have to give somebody their space. And I think sometimes people are, and this is something I learned in acting class, about like, how can you really be vulnerable in front of somebody? And I think part of being vulnerable is when somebody's being vulnerable in front of you, instead of being like, oh, okay, like going, did I get you to cry? I pulled a Barbara? Like, that's to me covering up their emotion or stifling their emotion, and immediately they're going to stop crying. They're going to be like, because you almost like the interviewer's almost uncomfortable with it. You got to be able to sit in it. Those are the golden moments.
Girl,
like,
makes a career. But you know, to your point though, Nikki, I think the silence also for the person who's not emotional, it might be a mirror reflecting back to them their own insecurity. Because people that don't know how to handle, I think people at least in my experience, I'm an emotional person. I think as I've gotten older, I've been okay with crying, and I've been okay with being open about how I feel, because you're taught, especially there's just so many social constructs that are placed on you about how you should be and how you should move through the world. Like, you're a beautiful woman, and people expect you to be a certain way instead of you just being Nikki Novak in all your beauty and everything you encompass, right? So when it comes to being a man in emotions, especially being Black, you're told you got to be like, yo, what up, Nikki? Yeah, I have no feelings, man. Ooh, me, man. You know, and it's so you really don't lean into how you feel, and that's so detrimental to your overall development. But when someone, I think a lot of talent that isn't experienced, when someone's having a moment, for them, it either elicits a visceral response of a moment that they don't want to go through, that they may have had in the past, or they don't know how to just exist in that space, because it's a lot. I interviewed Ally Brooke, and she started about Dancing with the Stars last year, and she was
my favorite show.
Oh, girl, we'll talk offline about Dancing with the Stars, Nikki. Yeah, but she was just talking about how in Fifth Harmony, she was the one that was picked on. She couldn't dance. She felt so unseen in that group, which was wildly successful. To get on Dancing with the Stars and be so successful, and she didn't know that she was going to cry. She's like, Jason, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to cry. And I was like, go ahead, let it out. And so she cried. And afterwards, she was like, thank you. And it was just like, it's cool. Like, I get it. You're human. And I've learned in quarantining throughout everything we've been going through this year that we can't lie about our emotions anymore. We can't just sweep everything under the rug and be like, you know what, I'm okay, when you're not, because we're all traumatized in some capacity. We all are.
It would be impossible not to be.
Yeah.
I mean, if you weren't somewhat traumatized by this whole thing, then there would be something like, if somebody said to me, you know, and I think there's that conversation you always have with people, is people say, how are you? And you go, I'm great, because you want to be positive, but you have to be willing to go, okay, let's really have that conversation.
Say it. Preach, mama. Preach. Trauma, the entertainment industry is for sure traumatic. How do you come back, Nikki? Because like you're one of the most positive, hardest working, like just sunshiny people I know, even on days where you're not feeling it. How have you been able to just come back from the disappointments of this industry, to rise above, to emerge victorious over and over again? What's your process? What are your steps? Share.
I have kind of two rules. Number one, my commercial agent told me this a long time ago, when I would be up for a big job, that, you know, commercials can pay a lot of money. And if I would get disappointed about not getting a job, you know, there's those people be like, oh, you'll get the next one, or no. she would say, no, it's okay. You get 24 hours to be upset. I'm giving you 24 hours. Go wallow for 24 hours because I know you need to. Because you don't want me to tell you right now it's going to be okay or you'll get the next one. Because that's just frustrating when someone tells you that because it's almost like denying your feelings.
Right.
But after 24 hours, move on. Let it go.
Yeah.
And so that's number one. And number two, I hate saying this because it's going to sound cliche, but you got to keep going. You just keep going. And it's never, you always have to have the big picture plan, but it's the day to day. Like you just wake up the next day and whatever you can do that next day, that's the joy of it. That's the joy, is the little baby steps along the way. You and I having this conversation right now is a joy. Like, you know, it's just, and if I was thinking about something down the road, or you just couldn't enjoy that moment. And like I said, I was going back through all my Instagram over the last bit and going, oh my gosh, I forgot about that little moment and that little moment. And never looking back did I go, oh, that was the moment I was really upset about something.
Right.
No, you look back and you go, oh, that was so, oh yeah, I forgot about that interview. That actor was so nice. You never think about the failures or where you were at. You think about, oh, how cool that exact moment was. So if you can do that as you go, that's the gold, I think.
Yeah, you're on the money. Your life is happening now. And I think we're so fixated on that and getting that job at E, landing that 3-year $1 million contract wherever, we're so fixated on proving everyone wrong that said we couldn't do it. Right? No, right? That and which it's because of the ambition that we have, right? We have been able to completely redirect that energy to push us further, but it ends up being this Pyrrhic victory because throughout all of it, we're killing ourselves to get this goal, but along the way, we're so angry, bitter, mad, we're holding on to resentment because of what has been done to us, what has been said to us, the no's that we're like, well, I'm going to show you. It's like Pat Benatar in that Love is a Battlefield video where her grandma kicks her out of the house. She's like, Grandma, I'm going to show you. And she's like 50.
I can't believe you just brought up that reference.
Nikki, she's 50. She's 50 in the video, but she's still living at home. But no, seriously, real talk though. So we miss out on the beauty, and when you go back and look, you realize that, oh my God, those are some of the best moments of my life that were tangled up in me not being present and learning to just be like, you know what? As you say to me all the time, Nick, you surrender and just be like, okay, accept what it is that's happening now, you know? Yeah. And so, girl, I feel you. But surrendering is something that a lot of people are doing. And also people are learning a lot about themselves in COVID. In the last 6 months, through everything that's happened, what have you learned most about yourself?
Oh, so it's unreal. It's unreal. I don't even think I knew myself before the last 6 months.
What, really?
That's how much I've learned. Like you really have to sit in yourself during all this because we're at home, you know, we're spending time at home. And I have learned everything has become so crystal clear. Like things that even in my personal life, certainly professionally, I've learned what's held me back. I've learned what I thought I wanted that I didn't. I've learned what I thought I didn't want that I actually did. What I really learned is to really get honest with myself. And that means looking at my flaws. And I think because we're always going, especially like you said in this business, we're looking for the next. Mm-hmm. And what I do is I'm on different shows. So in one day, I'm driving in LA. I'm stressing, am I going to get to this Access Hollywood on time? Am I going to get to this show on time? And what this has allowed me to do is just really sit in, why am I doing this? What do I want? What do I not want? And to also, because we're all doing this from home, really believe in myself that I can do this on my own. Like I can make things happen. I can create. What do I want to create? How do I want to pivot? Like it's just been like an unbelievable amount. Have you had the same? Like it's just been an unbelievable. I know you made a major, move and
100%
change. Yeah.
But Nikki, even look, the move, I think it's all intersectional. It all connects. And I agree with you 100%. Like having the time, LA or life in general, again, being ambitious, you you want to make things happen, and there's no time to really just deal with things. You have to, and also you have to survive. You have to make money. You have to stay in shape.
Yes.
You have so many requests of your time and demands on your time that you don't have time to be kind to yourself in the ways that you should. You know, before COVID happened, I was let go from a really good opportunity and had to see my name splashed in trade magazines and all these things. And it really puts in perspective, as you said, what's important, and really get honest with yourself as to what you want, what flaws that I didn't know were still, that I thought I had dealt with, or things I thought I had dealt with that came to the surface again. And it's hard, and it takes time to really swallow those pills and be like, okay, this feels uncomfortable, but let me baby steps my way into dealing with this until it's like jumping into a pool the first time. It's cold and you gotta, but the more you get into it, the more comfortable it feels. All of a sudden you're swimming and it's easier to exist in that space.
And you're shooting water out of your mouth in the air.
Right.
Like,
Backflips, you know what I mean? Like, you know, the whole thing. So yeah, Michael Phelps for the win. But I agree with you about sitting with yourself and realizing also, because look, what we're doing here now was born of me saying, let's create something. Let's connect with people. So there's so many silver linings that also have emerged and rise to the top from COVID and having this time to ourselves. I think we're going to look back and realize the same way that you went through your Instagram and we're looking at these pictures and singing and thinking those are the best times of my life. This was the best time of our lives, because the fruits that have been planted are going to be bountiful. And we're gonna be able to pick that fruit and eat from that fruit for a long time because we harvested what we needed to have that fruit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
I think my big hope is that my big hope, because I just feel like people are not kind enough to each other, and people are so, like, we're in an age where people are just so negative towards each other, but not just that, not just the fighting on Twitter and this and that, but just like you and I will say behind the scenes, we support each other.
Yeah.
And you are always the first person to text me to go, girl, your post, you look amazing, or, oh, that job, good for you. Like, you're very supportive. And I think it's very easy, especially in this business. And I really try to do this. Like, if I try to go out of my way to help people, because I think there's enough jobs to go around.
Yeah.
So if I can get somebody a spot on something, if I can't do it, or they need an additional person and they ask for a recommendation, I go out of my way. And I think going out of your way to help people, or just to be nice, you know, that's my big hope, is that we take that away from this.
There's an onlyness problem in Los Angeles, as you said, where people feel that there can only be one, that I can't clap for your success because my success hasn't arrived. And that too, Nikki, has been something that I've dealt with in COVID, leaving that belief in that thought process behind, because that only creates more within yourself. What you focus on expands, right? And it's easier said than done. No one is saying that any of this is easy, but to be able to clap for someone when things are going right for them, even though you're in a struggle, will only come back to you 10 times over when it's your turn to be clapped for. So it's, you got to keep doing it. The future, what does the future hold for Nikki Novak?
Zero clue. I'm just being honest. Zero clue, because people do. Okay, did you get this when you go to auditions and they say, "What's your dream job, Nikki? What's the show?" All
the time.
And I never have a good answer, because here's why. If I had answered this question 5 years ago, I wouldn't be like it. What I'm doing now is awesome, but I would never have envisioned this, because I think the future, the dream, hasn't been invented. The job that I really want probably hasn't been invented yet, because this business shifts and changes. So if I was to say, oh, I want to be on a show kind of like The View, or kind of like Kelly and Ryan, what you and I are going to end up doing is going to be totally different from what it looks like right now. So if that answers your question, and if not answer your question, I don't know. But I think that's what I'm trying to do more, is, like we said, surrender. Because if you try to control too much, it never works. It never works. And it'll probably be better than you ever imagined. What is coming for you will probably be better than what you could have envisioned yourself. And in 2006, Janet Jackson had an album called 20YO. And in the beginning of the album, she talks about they asked her, what do you want to sing about? And she says she sang about abuse, about love, all these things.
And she says, here's what I do know is that I don't know. And that's what I do know. And I felt that. I'm like, yeah, it takes the pressure off. Like, I don't know. But hey, I'm open to whatever. And I think there's so much peace and also power in that surrender.
Well,
So
I'll give you a little, and this is not name dropping, I swear, but you can call me on it if it is. Because when you said Janet Jackson, I grew up obsessed with Michael Jackson, like posters, wallpaper, like everywhere. Love the Jackson 5, love Janet Jackson. And my very first time in LA, I went to the Oscars, and I went to an Oscar after party. I lived in New York, and someone brought me to LA. My boyfriend and I came for the Oscars. We didn't go to the ceremony, but we went to all the parties. And she was there. And I'm standing off to the side. I'm so shy. And she's like, starts talking to me. And we just had this like lovely conversation. And at the end, she's like, you're so lovely. And you are just beautiful. And you're so this and that. And I'm like, if I could have ever dreamed, I would never have dreamed of that when I was a kid. You know what I mean? That would have happened and I would have had that exchange. That's why you just don't know ever. Did I just drop a name? Tell me.
No, no. Look, you get this. Janet Jackson celebrated you. Hey, you're winning.
Right. And you would have thought it would have been the other way around, you know? But I try not to fan out over people, and I didn't. I just was very quiet, but I was also a lot shyer at the time. But she was just so lovely. And I was like, yeah, you can't imagine what amazing things that are going to happen. I think if you do too much, you limit yourself as well. Right.
The truth is in the letting go. I'm gonna let you go, Nikki. I know you got a busy day. Again, congratulations on being on Access. You looked incredible as always, and thank you this was like the best conversation ever. Like, it was so fun. I know I needed some Nikki Novak therapy today. Thank you. I'll send you.
But here's the thing. Like, we're all insecure, right? Like, I'm like, I know Jason does these all the time. I hope mine is okay.
Oh my God.
We're all insecure. We're all like, you know, and I think I've told you this before. You're the real deal, and sky's the limit for you, and you're just amazing. And I love talking to you always.
You too, babe. All right, well, you go have a good day, and we'll talk about Dancing with the Stars later.
Yeah, you and I are going to be hosting that show one day.
I mean, this Tyra business, I don't know. Yes. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Go. Bye.
Okay, bye.